Hi everybody, this is the Patriot Hood, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, the Hud, and welcome back to the Patriot Hood. Hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. So I talked a lot about the John F Kennedy assassination and the roles of these former presidents that have had actually involved possibly in the assassination or who were there that day in Dealey Plaza. And this document came out a few years ago. Now, this article, I don't have it. It's from I think the University of Missouri. They had this out, and they had the headline, which is strange, because Richard Nixon has no role to the assassination, none. He's not involved with it. In fact, he was digging in to find out what happened to Kennedy because they were friends in Congress, and he wanted to know what happened to him when he was president. And the belief is that that because he was asking questions, he had to go down. The deep state never liked Nixon, going back to the 1940s when he went after Alger Hiss and Whittaker Chambers and the whole thing with the Soviet spying that was going on within the government and the media. But here's this article called The Role of Richard Nixon and George Bush in the Assassination of President Kennedy. A newly discovered FBI document reveals that George Bush was directly involved in the 1963 murder President John F. Kennedy. The document places Bush working with the now famous CIA agent Felix Rodriguez, recruiting right-wing Cuban exiles for the invasion of Cuba, which turned out to be the Bay of Pigs, which was called Operation Zapata, which was also the name of Bush's oil company. It was Bush's CIA job to organize the Cuban community in Miami for the invasion. The Cubans were trained as marksmen by the CIA. Bush at the time lived in Texas. Hopping from Houston to Miami weekly, Bush spent 1960 and 61 recruiting Cubans in Miami for the invasion. This is how he met Felix Rodriguez. Now, this operation had gotten started during the Eisenhower administration, so the wheels were already turning by the time Kennedy got into power. So this preceded him. So that's why there were a lot of angry feelings towards him because he wasn't president. He did not greenlight it. You may remember Rodriguez as the Iran-Contra CIA agent who received the first phone call telling the world the CIA plane flown by Gene Hassenfuss had crashed in Nicaragua. As soon as Rodriguez heard that the plane crashed, he called his longtime CIA supervisor, who was now Vice President George Bush. Bush denied being in the Contra loop, but investigators recently obtained copies of Oliver North's diary, which documents Bush's role as a CIA supervisor of the Contra supply network. This goes back to 83, 84, 85. I would have a question. G. Gordon Liddy and Oliver North were both pretty high-profile guys involved with two separate scandals, and I thought it was interesting that both of them became commentators on the network TV. Isn't that interesting? In 1988, Bush told Congress he knew nothing about the illegal supply flights until 1987, yet North's diary shows Bush the first planning meeting August 6, 1985. Okay. Bush's official log placed him somewhere else. Such double sets of logs are intended to hide Bush's real role in the CIA, to provide him with plausible deniability. The problem is it fell apart because too many people like North and Rodriguez have kept records that show Bush's CIA role back to the 1961 invasion of Cuba. The Washington Post, it goes back to 1990, July 10th, 1990. That is exactly how evidence was uncovered, placing George Bush working with Felix Rodriguez when JFK was killed. A memo from FBI head J. Edgar Hoover was found, stating that Mr. George Bush of the CIA had been briefed on November 23, 1963, about the reaction of anti-Castro Cuban exiles in Miami to the assassination of President Kennedy. Like I said, he was the one that ran the operation and trained these. He recruited them and was the mastermind behind that. It's funny about Rodriguez, he was also there in Dallas too. And he was also involved with the break-in of Watergate. Isn't that interesting as well? On the day of the assassination, Bush was in Texas, but he denies knowing exactly where he was. He says he had been the supervisor of the secret Cuban teams headed by former Cuban police commander Felix Rodriguez. Since 1960, it's likely Bush was also in Dallas in 1963. Several of the Cubans he was supervising as dirty trick teams for Nixon were photographed in the Zapruder film. Maybe, in 1959, Rodriguez was the top cop in the Cuban government under Batista. Now, here's the thing about Bush. Bush was staying in the Sheraton Hotel in Dallas that day. Now, according to his wife, Barbara Bush, a.k.a. known as the Silver Douchebag, coined by the late, great comedian George Carlin, she had said that he was in Haiti. That's what they said earlier, that he was in two places. You can't be in two places at one time. That's plausible deniability. So she was an alibi for him, saying, "Oh no, George wouldn't do that. George is in Haiti." But he admitted he was in Dallas. Now, when people ask him, "What were you doing in Dallas?" He said, "I don't remember." He doesn't remember what he was doing when the president was being killed. But I believe that there is the Zapruder film that shows Bush was there. They show him there. So all these people, all these CIA agents running around, all these insane people running around, all these killers, including George Bush, were there in Dallas that day. But what his role in this is interesting, because obviously he goes on to become a CIA director under Gerald Ford. He's also the RNC chairman during Richard Nixon's time. Wonder what kind of trouble he was causing. He was also a acolyte of of Henry Kissinger, very close with Dick Cheney, very close with Don Rumsfeld. They were all in that White House under Gerald Ford. So you got all these bad actors hanging around the White House and around the executive branch. This is very fascinating to me. I hope you're fascinated me going through all this information, finding more and more stuff. And these are memos. These are written memos from the head of the FBI, the director of the FBI, the cross-dressing, insane J. Edgar Hoover, talking about a CIA agent there in Washington, becomes president of the United States. His son becomes president of the United States. And it's not only that, folks. George H.W. Bush was good friends with a man who was the stepfather of Barack Obama. Let's keep that in mind. There are so many bad actors, so much stuff that the Bushes were involved with. Also, folks, he's the one that controlled the information on the assassination attempt of President Reagan. Believe that he's the one that put the hit out on President Reagan. And if it wasn't for James Baker getting shot in the head, President Reagan was probably going to die. President Reagan almost died, by the way. They tried to make they tried to make Bush out to be this big hero. I'm not gonna pretend I'm president. Bullshit. He wanted to be president, and he was the one controlling the information on the assassination. John Hinckley Jr., who was the supposed shooter, had said when he was arrested that this was a conspiracy. His brother was friends with Neil Bush. Very good friends. The families, the Hinkleys and the Bushes were good friends too. Unfreaking believable. You can't write this kind of stuff. This isn't something you'd see in a spy novel, that's for sure. Holy shit. Let me know what you think about this video. And of course, I'm going to keep doing videos on this. March 9th is the day. All this information on Kennedy's going to come out. I hope to God that President Trump puts out all the information on President Reagan's assassination attempt. So we need to know who was involved, what happened there. I never thought that was an assassination attempt up until just recently. Never occurred to me. But seeing as how we've only had three attempts on presidents in the last 60 years. One of them was killed. Two of them were shot. They were all shot. One of them was killed. The last time, by the grace of God, he did not get killed. That's President Trump. So this is very important stuff. We need to know who did all this stuff. We can't have this stuff in our country and in our government. These people are criminals. They're bad guys. They must be kept in prison and away from seats of power. Well, thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the Patriot Hut, and I'll see you later.